Do you feel like you're the only young person who cares about your Catholic faith? Do you look around at Mass and only see silver foxes?
We're Jake and Kathy, a young adult married couple, and we're here to tell you, you're not alone.
That's why it's time to get Truth Popped.
You're going to get a podcast designed specifically for you, a young adult Catholic in a pop culture world.
The countdown is on for Truth Pop.
We'll connect Christ into culture.
So, Caitlin, you actually starred in the original Hamilton. We're so happy to have you on this podcast.
We're so lucky.
We know you were just in the ensemble as the backup cello player.
No, I was the girl that moved the bullet.
But
it's a very important role.
We're so glad you joined today.
Well, welcome everybody. I guess we've already started. I'm going to include that in the show. To episode 35 of Disney Plus Reviews. I'm Phil Sousa, and I'm here with my good friends Grant and Caitlin Youngsma. I was going to come up with a witty intro, but I forgot to do that, so I'm just going to stick with that. How about Grant? Don't call me son, Youngsma.
Yes, and don't call me son.
And Caitlin the Bullet Youngsma.
Yep.
It's good to have both of you guys on the show again. So,
yeah.
Caitlin, it's been a while. I guess we covered, what was the last movie that we did?
Stargirl.
Stargirl, of course, yeah.
Heavyweights. You were on Heavyweights for a little bit.
I didn't say much, though.
Yeah, that's true. But your presence was felt, I'm sure, by everyone that listened. I feel like you'll have more to say on today's episode.
Yeah.
Good response.
Since I've actually seen the movie Heavyweights, I hadn't seen it in like a really long time.
That's right. Yeah, you hadn't seen it. We had you guys on for High School Musical, the series. Stupidest name ever. I will keep saying that. And this movie is kind of in the same vein as that, but very different. Obviously, the way it's shot. We'll get into that here in a second. But we are covering Hamilton. Not a new property. It's new to Disney Plus. Just came out literally today as we're recording this on Friday, July 3rd. And but been around since 2015 on Broadway. I've seen shows on Broadway. I've not been to New York even since this has been on Broadway. Otherwise, I think I probably would have tried to go see it no matter how much. I mean, I'm sure the tickets are like you got to expect like the balcony is like maybe 100 or 120
at least.
If
probably
you're front row, it's like you said, maybe $400.
Yeah. Who knows?
So
I know when I looked it up for like St. Louis, it was because it came to St. Louis and it was like $400 for even like the cheap seats. I think like it's ridiculous.
That's insane.
I don't know how people afford to go.
I mean, I guess if you live in New York City, in Manhattan or even in the suburbs and stuff like that,
yeah,
the various boroughs, you probably have a little bit of cash, and the cost of living is so high there. I'm sure salaries are pretty high, but yeah, I mean, for us, like we live in Missouri, Southwest Missouri, and so for us to like take a vacation in New York and then pay over 100, like for one ticket, over $100 is like kind of insane. We have a small local theater in Springfield called it's literally called the Springfield Little Theater, and it's good. Like their shows are really good, but their tickets are like $35, I think, for an adult. And they go up every year. I remember paying as little as like $16, $17. So Broadway, this is not in Springfield. It's very kind of local community theater. So when I see musicals like what we just watched on Disney Plus, I'm always reminded as to the caliber that it takes to actually be on Broadway.
Yeah,
so maybe they'll have Hamilton Jr. someday at Springfield Little
Hamilton,
Theater.
They will not.
The junior version.
But then we have Juanita K, where the traveling Broadway shows come.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
And we've seen several shows there.
Yeah, and we've seen some big shows there. Phantom has been there. Like some huge Broadway shows.
Wicked.
Wicked was awesome. I loved watching Wicked
Lion
there.
King.
You guys see more than we do. We try to go to them, but like we used to go to a lot more shows before we had Jordan, but like now that we have a kid and like our cost of living has gone up, not a ton, but a little bit. And it's harder to get out of the house and have someone watch her and stuff like that. It's been harder to go to those shows, but I only wish that at Juanita K. Hammond's Hall, which is like our local, like huge performing arts center, they don't do any local shows. I think they only bring
the traveling stuff mostly. Yeah.
Yeah, the tours and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just, my only regret is that I just wish those tours would come in a little bit more frequently. Like it's only like 1 or 2 a year that I really care to see. So, but have you guys? Let's start it off there. What have you seen on Broadway, if anything? Have you guys been to New York?
I have. I've seen Beauty and the Beast.
Okay, cool. What do you remember from that? How long ago was that?
I was probably about 12.
Okay, so
it's been a while.
Quite a while.
Yeah. I remember that Christy Carlson Romano, she's like kind of a Disney star from Even Stevens, right? Is the show she was in? Mm-hmm. She was Belle.
Okay.
And I don't really remember any of the other people specifically, like who it was, but I remember really liking it, and because Beauty and the Beast has always been like one of my favorites since I was little, so yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I saw The Producers in New York City, and I also saw West Side Story in New York City.
Okay.
And I think I've seen a third show too, but I can't remember what it was. But I remember there was some actor that was like kind of famous in The Producers. I can't remember who it was now. And what, I didn't even think he was like one of the main. He might have been a main character, but it was like a Hollywood actor that you would know if you saw them, but probably not their name. And that's why I can't remember who it was. But I remember kind of thinking that was pretty cool. I'm like, oh, I was in the same room as him. So
yeah.
But like. So have you guys, I know you guys have gone to the Springfield shows. Have you seen other shows like in St. Louis or Chicago? I don't know where all you guys have been, but.
No, not really.
Okay. I saw like I want to throw this out before we get into the musical, but Chicago has like a Broadway scene that nobody knows about or really talks about. And in all honesty, I saw a show up there. In all honesty, that show was just as good as anything I've seen in New York. And it's not like I've seen a ton, but I've seen 2 or 3 shows in New York. And the one I saw in Chicago, honestly, I couldn't tell the difference. Like it's obviously a big city area and a big city for the arts, for jazz and other things. And their production was amazing. So.
Yeah. And I feel like the ones that come to Springfield are really high caliber too. Like the traveling ones. I mean, like the Lion King, I know like was like the costumes and the set and everything. Like it's incredible that they like, and the fact that they like travel all over. So they're setting it up and tearing it down and all those different places. So yeah.
I don't remember the name of the show that we saw because it was like a non-Broadway show. I think it was maybe even locally written. To use New York terms, it was like an off-Broadway type show.
Okay.
Very small, not a musical. Like it was just nothing but just delivered lines. But like perfectly acted and really good story. Like I wish I could remember the name of it, but like it was so good, and it was like Chicago's off Broadway. Like it wasn't even like their big shows.
Yeah.
And I was completely blown away. So, and the tickets weren't that bad either. So, definitely support local. I mean, as soon as we can when COVID stops, definitely support your local theater if you have one, because there's a lot of really cool stuff happening in just theater in general, and I think it promotes the arts, which is always a good thing in whatever town you live in. So let me do the quick synopsis of kind of how Disney Plus describes Hamilton, and then we'll get into we literally just watched it like 5 minutes before we hit record, so we have a lot of thoughts about the movie, I'm sure, or the musical. We can't really call this a movie.
No,
it's a musical.
Yeah.
It's a recorded musical.
Broadway.
Yeah. In fact, that's what it says here. It says the filmed version of the original Broadway smash hit Hamilton combines the best elements of live theater, film, and streaming in an astounding blend of hip-hop, jazz, R&B, and Broadway. Presenting the tale of American founding father Alexander Hamilton, this revolutionary moment in theater is the story of America then, told by America now. Pretty cool synopsis. It's worth noting that we are going to spoil, I guess, if there's... this is not a movie that... or a recorded thing that I think probably a lot of people are going to care about spoilers. Chances are you may be listening to this and have no intention of watching Hamilton, but you're just interested in being part of the conversation of what's going on. This is obviously a big get for Disney Plus.
And it's somewhat historical too. So a lot of people may already know what happens.
Yeah. And I guess let's start there. Like, as far as what we know, I don't know as much history as I think. I mean, both of you guys probably know history better than I do. I know, Grant, you love history and love researching and learning about history, especially American history. From what you know, this movie's pretty accurate.
Somewhat. I mean,
musical?
Even with movies that go to Hollywood, there's some stuff that they leave out or add in to make it flow better. I mean, I'd say it's pretty much the same. Like Hamilton runs that way, where there's some stuff they leave out, but there's also some stuff that they insert.
Yeah. I think it at least is going for authenticity. It's trying to tell the events the way that they truly happened and not embellish anything.
Yeah.
And yet, obviously, it takes liberties with like the musical stylings, even the costuming to a certain degree. Like Caitlin was saying, like, hey, why aren't they wearing like,
the wigs?
The like curly wigs and stuff.
Yeah.
So it definitely takes a few liberties here and there. The biggest thing, and if you're not familiar with Hamilton, I'd not even seen a trailer. Like I try to stay away. If I know I'm going to watch something, I try to stay away from all that promo stuff. So I had heard that it was like rap music and R&B stuff. I did not know that pretty much almost the entire thing is rap. There's like of 2 hours and 20 minutes or whatever, or 30 minutes. Like maybe there might be like 25 total minutes of actual song, like notes sung up and down. Almost the entire thing's rap. And I think that was the most shocking thing, but also I was because I like that genre, it also was the thing that was like, this is cool. Like it got me in. So what were you expecting as far as the music? I'm looking at Caitlin. Had you watched or listened to anything?
Not really too much. I mean, the only thing I had heard was I mentioned this earlier to you, but I had seen like a cover of Kelly Clarkson singing one of the songs, and that was like pretty much I didn't really expect it to be like, and there wasn't really any like dialogue really, like, because the music was constantly going. I mean, it was like even in the background, like always was there. So I didn't really expect that. It was almost more like operatic than musical theater, almost like, well, they did speak, but like in the fact that it was constant music, like there was no real like stop in the music at all. Yeah. So
when I think people, for most, including myself, when most people think of musicals, they think of a Beauty and the Beast or something like that, where there's like, okay, there's a scene and then now it's time for a song and then there's another scene.
And there's not like
that's
this
not
at all.
this at all. Yeah.
And
I kind of liked it. Like probably the closest thing I've seen to this is Phantom. Like Phantom of the Opera is mostly music.
Yeah, mostly.
But I feel like even Phantom has some scenes, right?
Yeah. And like Into the Woods is another one that's a lot of music. Like there's very little like dialogue, and there's a lot of music in the background the whole time and stuff too. So
the music literally never stops in this. If it stops at all, it's for maybe 10 seconds. It's really not.
I know there was during that one scene where like his son dies, there was kind of that there was one time where it was really silent and like it was just kind of them talking, but other than that it was like.
And honestly, like, so, Caitlin and I are both music buffs, have music degrees. I see that section of like no instrumental as being more of just everyone is resting. Like there are just 10 measures of rest for your instrument. Yeah. As opposed to the end of a song and then the next song doesn't start for another 15 seconds. I legit think like the instrumentalists maybe just see constant sheet music for 2.5 hours.
Definitely.
So imagine being an instrumentalist for this show.
It would be an intense... I mean, really for everybody in the show, I feel like it's very like almost everybody's out there all the time and there's very little like dead time really. Yeah. Like even like the ensemble people are constantly out there.
Yep.
So.
Yep. There isn't really any rest. Yeah. Except for very brief costume changes. Yeah. Probably a lot of them were not even off stage. Yeah. So for 2.5 hours. Yeah. So there's an intermission. It's told in 2 acts. There's even an intermission in the Disney Plus version, which I found
1 minute.
Yeah, and it literally counts down from 1 minute down to 0 seconds, which I thought that was interesting. There are certainly longer musicals. As soon as we finished this one, it said, "Hey, do you want to watch Sound of Music next?" And Sound of Music clocks in at 2:55. This was 2:40, so it was pretty long. But when you think about the context of watching a Broadway show, the show starts at 7 and it ends at 10.
Yeah.
And there's a 20-minute intermission.
Yeah, so it's about the same length.
Yeah. So it's pretty typical, I think, for that kind of thing. The instrumentals, like the actual instruments that were in the musical, actually shocked me at the end. Like, it was literally one guitarist, one bass guitarist, piano, 2 violins, a viola, and a cello, and percussion. Yeah. And that was it.
Yeah.
It sounds like this hugely orchestrated thing, but it's really just a band with a few string players.
Yeah.
So very different. Grant, what do you think about the music in it? Did you like it or?
I liked it. I enjoy rap occasionally. So
for 2.5 hours straight,
it was good. I mean, coming into it, I didn't really know what to expect. I knew Lin-Manuel Miranda was in it because had seen him in Mary Poppins Returns, and then I knew that Leslie Odom Jr. was in it as well, and that's really all I knew about it.
Sorry, who's she?
He.
That's Aaron Burr.
Okay, I forget Leslie can also be a guy's name. I actually worked for a Leslie that was a male, so I don't know why I went to female.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was Aaron Burr.
Yeah.
Okay, what else did you know kind of going into this, or was pretty much everything else a surprise?
I mean, I knew it was basically like a present day take on way back when, but other than that, didn't really know what to expect. Saw the music on Spotify, and that's about it.
Yeah. Because of what we said earlier about how there's not really a break in the music, you can, I'm assuming, listen to the entire show from beginning all the way to the end in an audio only format in Spotify.
Yeah.
I doubt there's anything that's left out, honestly, because it's 2 hours and 20 minutes. This was a 2 hour and 40 minute production, but there were credits at the end and a 1 minute intermission. I think you're probably listening to the entire thing on Spotify if you press play.
Yeah.
So that said, this is probably, I'm assuming, the first publicly available video recording of this. You could probably purchase, for individual sale, copies of Broadway productions. I'm assuming if they sold them in the past, you could pick those up. This is it's a 2015 musical, 2016 recording. So this recording was made 4 years ago, and it's just now coming to Disney Plus. We don't know the answer to the question, but we kind of debated: is this the copy that they've been selling for the last 4 years, or is it like some recording they just had in their archives and no one's ever seen it until now? Obviously, every show being pretty much almost a carbon copy of every other show.
Pretty identical.
Every other. Once you get to Broadway level, you're pretty much doing it note for note, move for move. So I doubt that there would have been a whole lot of differences in the 2018 version. Maybe some slight choreographic
or maybe
differences.
some personnel changes or something.
Yeah. I do wonder if has the cast changed at all, or if it's been the exact same cast for all these 5 years. But obviously, none of them are. I imagine that this is. The actors in this, I would hope at least that they would get a paycheck from this. Like, you never know, but like Disney Plus pays Lin-Manuel, I'm assuming it's his show, and then he sends those royalties down, trickles down or whatever. But like good for those actors, because I'm assuming unless they're waiting tables somewhere at some restaurant outside of New York City, I guess, they probably haven't had a paycheck in a while.
With Broadway being shut down. Yeah.
This is their livelihood.
I mean, Lin-Manuel definitely cashed in. Probably big time from Disney Plus, or Disney as it is.
I can't imagine how much money Disney Plus spent to have the exclusive. This is not on anything else, right?
Because I mean, he's the writer, the producer, the star of the show.
Yeah, did
all the music.
Yeah, he took that check to the bank, and the bank was like, "Is this real? Is this a real number?" Yeah, he laughed all the way to the bank on this one for sure. So let's talk about the actual production of it. I kind of want to throw it to you guys because I haven't really seen as many of these kind of shows as you guys have, but I kind of teased Caitlin with this idea before we started watching this one. But so is it ABC Who's been doing the December musicals for the last?
It's a little bit
3 or 4 years.
ABC's had a couple, NBC's had a couple, Fox has had a couple.
Okay. So they've done Sound of Music and
Peter Pan.
Did they do Into the Woods? No.
No.
So there. Anyways, what I'm talking about is like these musicals that are intentionally recorded for a camera. Like they're not.
They literally rehearse and they perform it this one day, and it's literally live. Like is for what I understand as you're watching it. Like
oh, that's right. I forgot about the live part of it. Mm-hmm. So they are literally performing this. There's a slight delay, obviously, but they're performing it in front of the camera, and then you see it.
Yeah,
I forgot about that. By the way, that's pretty brave of them to do something like that. So like. Because if there's a major mess up, I guess
there's nothing they can do about it. Yeah.
And they have to stay on time. I can't imagine producing that thing. But no, this is a pre-recorded thing, obviously 2016, but not intentionally made. There's a live audience that you can actually see on the screen a few times. You see hands clapping or whatever, and people laughing in the background. This is not one of those December things. So I guess compare those two experiences. Did you like this better? Did you like the other better? What was different about watching it in this way as opposed to this intentionally made for television recordings of musicals? What do you think?
I mean, I think the big difference between Hamilton and the other ones is the people are a lot more well known on the actual national broadcast.
They try to get people that you've heard of and stuff, which in some ways can be a good thing. In some ways, I think it's a bad thing because they might not necessarily be the right people for that role, but they like throw them in there anyways. Like, I'll give you an example. So I love Carrie Underwood as a singer, but they had her play Maria, and I wasn't a fan.
She's
honestly.
Not. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't have expected huge things from her, but like she's not an actor, right?
No. So I just like compared to like I've grown up watching The Sound of Music since I was really young, and the Julie Andrews version, like I've always loved it and watched it, and like compared to like that version, like I'm not a fan of like the live version. Yeah. I think there's no comparison. Like the original's so much better, but and obviously there's some differences because it's the musical version, not the movie version and stuff. And like I remember in the Grease one, wasn't it like who played Sandy, and like there was some famous
Vanessa
people.
Hudgens was in it.
Yeah, she was what's the girl that's kind of the
I don't remember, but
yeah, so some of the people, I just think sometimes the people that they choose aren't really the best people for those roles, whereas like in Hamilton, like I felt like everyone was really talented and really well cast and like did a really good job, whereas some of those I feel like they could have done a better job casting people and stuff. But
I would really have loved to have been a fly on the wall during the initial consult between Disney Plus and I'm assuming Lin-Manuel or his team, to say like, hey, do you guys want to record like a straight to TV Disney Plus exclusive? Like no one's ever going to see this performance until it runs on Disney Plus, or do you want to just submit to Disney Plus like an old recording of the show? And how ultimately they ended up on the latter, like that they didn't go with the this December musical thing that's been happening for years. I don't know. I think I liked this better probably too.
Yeah, it was more authentic and like an actual Broadway show, whereas these were just kind of like, like more like, I don't know, just fake to me. Like, so.
Yeah.
And I feel like COVID kind of probably had something to do with it.
The fact that they couldn't really do a new production of it.
I feel like they were going to come out with like a theatrical movie that was going to be in movie theaters of this.
Yeah.
But I think COVID kind of threw a wrench in it, and that's where you got what you got, which was good.
There is kind of like that third group of this kind of thing is like the original Julie Andrews Sound of Music. That's almost a third thing. Like there's this, December like recorded musical, but it's staged, like it's on a stage.
Yeah.
And then there's the musical that's not on a stage. It's literally
a movie,
like it's
version.
It's filmed in 8 locations.
Yeah.
And then there's this, which is literally just let's put a camera. I mean, it's multiple cameras, but let's literally just stick a camera in the room and just record them on the stage. So I think I really liked this too. I'll go ahead and say what I didn't want to spoil you on earlier. IGN's review of this was hugely positive. They were 8 out of 10. They said it was really great. But where they came down negative was they didn't like the filming of them on a show. And one of their negative things, I don't agree, but like what they said was that the cast members are playing to a crowd that we don't get to be a part of. Like you can see on the camera, they're not even looking at the camera. They're looking at the people in the room, and they're performing for the room. They didn't even know that they were performing for Disney Plus when they recorded this, and so it seems inauthentic in the sense that it didn't give the actors a chance to actually play to the actual audience that they're performing for.
I didn't really notice that. Really, I really even think about that. But
so I had read that review. I didn't want to spoil you guys on it and tell you that before going into it. I just wanted you to enjoy the movie. But even when I knew that and was looking for that as I watched it, I didn't agree. I thought, yes, they're not always looking straight at the camera, which I'm sure, Carrie Underwood was always looking directly at the camera. But I don't really care about that.
It didn't really ruin it. Yeah. I don't think.
Plus, I think we got to enjoy some things in this production that I don't think we would have ever gotten if they had filmed their own Disney Plus exclusive production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's talk about that stage. The carousel, I don't know how you describe it, the spinning floor of this thing was awesome. Awesome to me. I like from moment one, it was not a gimmick at all. I never felt like I was like, okay, well, they got to find another excuse to use this mechanical floor.
No, it totally like flowed in with what they were doing.
It was so great. They thought of so many different ways to use it that really made sense. From like more ponderous kind of moments where like the characters were like self-inflecting and the room is, the floor is spinning around, just giving you the impression that they're just like really looking inside, to like action scenes where like someone's firing, it's a duel and someone's firing a bullet and they're like whirling around as they're getting shot, to what is for me the best scene, one of the best scenes in the entire musical as far as staging goes, is the hurricane, and how Alexander Hamilton he's talking about he's in the eye of the hurricane, that the world around him is just swirling around, and it is literally swirling around because the stage literally moves.
And they're like holding furniture and stuff.
It was so great.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, the other actors, the ensemble for the most part, are like holding like chairs, and like a couple of them are grabbing a couch and like holding above their heads. Some of them are holding people, and you literally get the sense of like it's a Twister, like almost like the movie Twister, like that things are, not cows, but everything else is like swirling around you in this moment. And it really made that scene come alive. And a lot of it was because of that floor. Like I just really was impressed. The other thing I thought was really cool, and again, I don't think we would have got at all in some kind of, exclusive to Disney Plus, was the lighting. And I thought the lighting was really out of this world. So, like from spots that were like square shaped to dividing lines in between characters to give you the sense of like they're in separate rooms.
But they were like right next to each other.
To all the different colored lights that they used, and how they sectioned off stages with very creative lighting. I was impressed. Like I've never seen anything like that in Springfield. So that was cool. What else do you guys like about just the choreography, the staging, the costuming, just how they put on the show itself? It's a pretty simplistic stage, really. It
really is, and it doesn't really change much. Like they bring out like some desks or different furniture, but other than that, it's pretty. And they have like some stairs that move like in and out at one point. Yeah, but it was really pretty simple to be. I mean, compared to some shows that have like big set changes.
Yeah, there was no, like the background never changed for 2.5 hours. There were like two staircases that were like on the left and right side. Yeah. And then that went up to like a banner balcony type thing along the back wall. Yeah. And then the spinning floor, and that was kind of it. Yeah. And then they kind of did if you've ever seen Rent, and a lot of other shows do this too, but like there's no like stage crew that like is all in black and like pull things. The actors themselves are grabbing
or pulling stuff
props
in and out.
And like moving them off stage. So obviously they've practiced this thing probably literally 1,000 times before they did this, but it is just perfect. Like that no one misses a step ever. They're all robots out there perfectly executing. We can come back to staging if we think of something later, but story wise, what do you guys think? What were some of the key moments for you guys? What were some things that maybe you had forgotten about from American history that you kind of relearned? This is a entertaining musical in its own right, in the same way that you can watch a fake story like West Side Story or something like that, and or Rent, and be enthralled with what you're watching. But it's also true, like it is trying to tell history in a real way. It's more fun than history class, but it is essentially almost a history class.
Yeah.
One thing I really enjoyed was the relationship between Burr and Hamilton, because ultimately Burr's the one that kills him in the end. And I thought it was well played by them, how it almost, there were parts where it's from Burr's point of view, and I thought that was really cool.
One thing I didn't see coming to see is the narrator.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he opened the show.
Yeah.
And so how they used Aaron Burr in it, I thought that was very well done. There's not really a bad guy in this show, but if it is, it's him, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I would say so, yeah.
I mean, we know I think probably most Americans know how the musical is going to end, that Burr's going to shoot Hamilton at the end. That's a very famous story from American history. So I went into this thinking, okay, this guy's going to be the bad guy. But for the whole first half of the show, I wasn't convinced. Yeah. Like, he's a really likable guy.
Yeah.
And he's really Alexander's friend for the first half of the musical. Yeah. So
he really doesn't, like,
there's
quote unquote, become his enemy legitimately until Hamilton backs Jefferson.
Yeah.
But there's kind of things leading up where he's jealous of him, basically, because he's Washington's right-hand man in the Revolutionary War, and there's several things that happen where he's kind of like, and then he takes Hamilton's father-in-law's spot in the Senate, stuff like that, where it's kind of leading up to oh, okay, there's going to be a big conflict between them. But
I don't know if you guys will agree with this, but I kind of see both of them as the bad guy in this musical, which is kind of weird to say about the main character of the show, literally the namesake of the show. But Hamilton's not a good dude all the time.
No.
If anything, you could call him an anti-hero, I guess, but I don't know that that's going far enough. I really think that he is the villain sometimes in this musical.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
And so there's theories out there that some people might believe Hamilton got what he deserved.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he has 3 different ladies that they show in the musical.
There could be more. We don't know.
there probably was more
and
in
2
history.
of them were sisters.
Yeah. The 4th and the 5th ones were off stage the entire time.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely things not to like about Alexander
and then
Hamilton.
On top of it, he has an affair, and then he publishes a pamphlet about it to tell everyone that he had an affair.
95-page pamphlet.
Which I still don't really understand why he did that, but
I gotta be honest, I didn't know a lot of the details of this musical going in. I didn't know. It's been so long since I've had American history. I didn't remember that he had that many women and that many kids by them. A lot of the information in this was new information for me.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, I did like their relationship a lot. Like watching anytime. Here's one of my very few negatives about the musical is I wanted to see Aaron Burr on stage more than he was. Not just because he's a fantastic actor and singer. He is a triple threat performer. He's incredible. Yeah. But so I wanted to see him more just because I think he deserves more stage time. But I also was a little confused as why we weren't getting more of his perspective on things. I know the musical is titled Hamilton and not Burr.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see, I almost would have preferred to see a musical about that's almost equal parts, or it may at least 60-40 or something. I really feel like we got 70-30 or even 80-20, on the Hamilton side of things. Mm-hmm. And my favorite scenes were the scenes where the 2 of them were together, because you can feel the admiration, but also the tension between these 2 guys.
Yeah.
And how they're trying to one up each other, but also learning from each other. And I wish there was a little bit more of that. I think it was trying to tell a bigger story, and I almost wish the story was a little smaller. more focused, I guess. The events of the musical take place over almost 2 decades.
Yeah, it's a lot of time period that they kind of squished together.
And there are a lot of characters. They're literally trying to cover everything about, not everything,
but
the
Revolutionary War.
Because you start like pre-Revolutionary War,
and it was, but they never really talk about like the Declaration of Independence, so that had kind of already happened, I guess.
And then it goes all the way till
the Constitution,
1804 when Hamilton dies. So I mean,
and it's kind of like, for me, like it was weird.
3 decades then.
Yeah. And for me, it was kind of weird because like they had the election of 1800 or whatever, and then there was really like 4 years of time that took place, but it was like all of a sudden like the election happened and then it was the duel like right away. So like to me, I'm like wondering like, why did it take so long for them to have this duel? Like 4 years, because if that's really what made him so mad, was him showing support for Jefferson, you know.
Yeah, you won't hear me say very many negative things about this because I absolutely loved it from front to back, but I almost felt like it tried to tell too much, and then some of those more important details got lost. It just got left to the cutting room floor. But yeah, that's maybe a small thing. That said, I loved Washington. He was such a cool character. King George almost steals the whole show.
He was hilarious. He was probably one of my favorite parts when he would come out.
You could tell a lot of the people in the crowd had seen this before. This was not their first viewing of Hamilton.
Yeah.
Because as soon as King George came out, he hadn't even said anything. He had not sung a word or said a word yet. And he comes out on the stage and people just immediately start clapping. He's obviously a fan favorite.
Yeah. He was very funny.
And like Jefferson, who also plays Lafayette, I thought he did a very good job as well.
Yeah.
Well, there's several characters that play multiple characters, which confused me at moments, but I figured it out.
Which we didn't count up the number, but there's roughly probably 15 characters total, or
actors.
15 people.
Yeah.
Total in this show.
Yeah, and I said actors. That's not even true. I think Grant's. I mean, I agree with Grant. He's including ensemble people that literally don't have any lines.
Yeah.
Total, there's maybe 15 humans on stage at any time.
And there's only like 3 main female roles.
Yeah.
The rest of them are all male.
So let's talk about actors playing multiple roles. Like Grant just said, one actor plays both Thomas Jefferson, but also Lafayette as well.
And then the guy who played James Madison was like somebody else, one of his friends during like the war, and then his other friend that like died in the war, then he was his son.
Yeah, Lawrence was also Philip,
which was weird because he was supposed to be 9 years old and he was obviously a grown man.
So why is that? I mean, we're not going to be able to, we're just going to venture a guess at best, but like, why not cast more people? Like, why not just have like 22 people in the show as opposed to 15?
I don't know.
I don't know why it had to be that way.
I guess maybe like, I mean, because most of those characters were only in like the first half of the show. So then they were like, well, then these people can have something to do during the second half, you know, because it kind of after intermission. Because I mean, the whole first half was like Revolutionary War times. And then it kind of ended at that half. And then like those people kind of took a back seat. So then there was new characters that came in. So I guess maybe they were like, well, they're not being used in the second half. So why pay more people? Just have them.
Or I mean, when they were doing auditions, Lin-Manuel Miranda could just said, I mean, these people can play multiple roles.
Yeah, maybe you just really like those people.
Well, to give them more to do, like, I mean, some of the characters, like you already said, like some of the characters literally die in the middle of the show. So like, I guess that actor's done at that point. So it gave them something to do for the entire show. Did you already say that? You might have already said this. The girl, there was one girl that was a sister, but also
No,
Mariah.
I don't think we said that yet.
She was also the one that he was cheating.
So really, he loved all 3 sisters, really.
Yes, when you get to the meta of it.
Not really, but...
Yeah, I think it's worth noting there are only, as far as non-ensemble characters, there are only three women in this show. Yeah. Which, I mean, that's true to history. Like, I mean, history, I think, unfortunately, but like history was written by men back in the 1700s, and all leadership was male leadership back then for the most part. They did mention, the lady that made the flag.
Betsy Ross.
Betsy Ross. She's not in the show, but they mentioned Betsy
her.
Ross.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a song. I'm just talking like on the feminist side of things, but like there was one of the first, maybe the first song in the musical was the three sisters together, and they're talking about.
They're talking about giving women more rights and stuff. Like they're gonna ask, who was it? Who are they gonna ask? Jefferson or somebody? I don't know. They mentioned somebody that they're going to ask them to give women more rights or something.
Yeah, it's not a major part of this. I feel like if you're going to talk about, an event or a theme or whatever that's outside of like the actual like personal events, the biggest thing is revolution. It's about not just the Revolutionary War, but also, becoming a country, and we can do this thing on our own. We're going to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. So I thought it was a little confusing that they had a song about equality at the beginning, just because that literally never comes up again.
Yeah.
But I guess they wanted to give the women some spotlight, which I wasn't against at all. So, this is I want to go back to King George. This is not a show that will ever perform in London, right?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think this show will ever be able to be pulled off of Broadway. Like it's just way too complex, and hard. Yeah. The music is so hard.
I don't think the show will ever leave America.
Yeah.
Soil.
Yeah, I think for multiple reasons, right? I think in some countries it's actually literally offensive.
Yeah.
In other countries it's not offensive. Like Rio de Janeiro has like a really kicking, Broadway level. They probably don't ever do this in Rio, just because it doesn't mean anything to them. It is a very American musical. This one,
definitely.
So it's not just starring Americans; it's literally about America and the birth of our country, essentially. Mm-hmm. Which I didn't know that going into this either. That was a huge surprise to me. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised considering the titular character, but like I did not know that they were going to double down on the revolution. There's literally like battles that are played out in this.
The Battle of Yorktown is a big one that they.
Yep. And I loved the. We're getting some lightning and thunder here. You may hear some lightning on the recording here in a second, or thunder, I guess I should say. They had like people like dress up in red coats and holding muskets, rifles, or whatever. And a lot of the choreographic dancing was like goose stepping, like the marching kind of things.
Yeah.
And
you had the British waving the white flag at Yorktown.
Surrendering. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was cool. It's not to the level of what's that French Revolution musical? I'm blanking on it.
Les Mis.
Yeah, it's not to the level of Les Mis, but there's enough here that I think it makes it educational as far as like the actual wartime of what's going on, even though it's not about the war specifically. So we kind of talked about like main characters that we liked and stuff like that. I thought kind of going back to some of the songs and stuff like that, I think the amount of lyrics that are in this, like to memorize all the lyrics, it's rap, so it's not these like long form, like long notes. It takes you 10 seconds to utter one phrase. That's not what's going on here at all.
No.
It's like Eminem level, Kanye. There's one guy actually I thought that was it. Yeah, I think the guy that plays Aaron Burr I think sounds like Kanye. He's a really good rapper, and like I cannot imagine memorizing all the lyrics that you have to learn to actually pull this off. Did we mention? Yeah, we mentioned that Lin-Manuel penned every word.
Yeah.
Of this musical. So
and he wrote all the music, the lyrics, everything.
Yeah, that's insane. But yeah, so for him it's like, okay, he wrote the lyrics, so I can kind of understand him memorizing all of his raps and lines. But there were some songs that were mostly sung not by him, and they had to memorize every single word of that rap. So
even the women had like Angelica. She had a bunch of moments where she was like talking real fast, and I'm like, holy cow.
Their practices were probably crazy. Like the rehearsals and everything.
Well, and you have to get your thing right because it's going to mess up the next guy if you don't. Like it's not like a loving, every musical has like their love ballad that's a duet song, and it's very easy to sing because it's very slow and everything. But in this one, like if you literally miss your beats, your time to jump in, everyone gets thrown off, and then the whole thing unravels. So to pull this off with exquisite, we talked about how like could this ever be performed outside of New York? To perform it with that kind of exquisite intricacy, I don't know. Like when I talked about Chicago, I kind of boasted on Chicago, maybe Los Angeles, at the Pantages Theater there or something like that, some kind of huge theater. But you're not going to see this. That's I think the problem with this one, and I think maybe why Lin-Manuel was so eager to bring it to Disney Plus is like, unless you fly to New York, where are you going to see?
You're not going to be able to see
the show that
it.
I wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really cool that it's on Disney Plus because I think it gives people a chance to see it that would literally go their entire life and not seeing it. And I think this deserves to be seen by especially Americans around, once you're old enough to watch it. We'll talk about the some of the crassness here in a second.
Okay.
But also because I think it really will truly inspire you to go see it in person. They rolled credits at the end of this recording of it, and the first thing in my mind was like, I gotta see that, and I gotta see that live. And I don't know that I would have said that as robustly before watching it. Like I'd always Hamilton. The crazy thing is that these shows that originate in literally one city in the world are household names, especially in America. Like everyone has heard of Hamilton, everyone, because of the Tony Award records that it broke and stuff like that. It made national news. And yet you count the number of Americans that had actually watched it before today. It's a very small number.
Not very many.
Yeah. So I just think it's cool that it's here. But let's talk about the lyrics. It is not. I think Caitlin, you and I were talking about it, and I was comparing it maybe to Rent, like as far as like there are some F-bombs in the musical, and Rent is riddled with them. Rent probably has 150, and this one had, I think, 3, right?
3.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not as wild, and I don't want to say this is a crass, dirty movie. It's not. It's ultimately the thing exists in the 1700s. So you kind of, if you're going for authenticity, you don't have the characters dropping an F-bomb every 10 seconds. That's not going to make sense. So it makes sense in the world that it exists, but there are some kind of crass moments or whatever. So what do you guys think about the way that they bleeped or omitted words? Was it jarring at all? There's really only one.
No, I didn't really notice it until that one where it was like pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But I mean,
there's an actual beep at one point.
Yeah. Other than that, like I felt like it was kind of hard to like know where they were. I mean, Grant looked up what songs they were in, but I wouldn't have noticed it.
I think you could easily miss the first 2.
Yeah. I wouldn't have noticed it.
You're not looking for them.
And even some of the other like language, I didn't even hear some of it, like
because they're going so fast.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd say the last one is blatant. I mean, it beeps it out and everything.
There's like a 3-second beep there.
But I mean, looking at like, cause I looked it up on Spotify, and like, there's a lot of the songs that are marked explicit. And so I honestly expect there to be a lot more profanity than there was, to be honest, like with them being marked explicit. Cause usually when a song's marked explicit, it's like, okay, there's several like words in there,
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you're listening to this and you're wondering, should my kids watch it, and you're worried about profanity or even like sexual, like visual stuff, there are a couple scenes where there's a little bit of like, provocative touching, but it doesn't like no one's clothes are coming off. I thought this musical was pretty clean overall.
Yeah.
There are some, I'm not going to use actual words, S words, D-A, like every word in the profanity dictionary is here, but there's so few and far between. I felt like sometimes we would go 5 or 6 minutes in a row and there was not a single profane word.
I'd say the only word that like you definitely can't miss is the B word. I mean, that's given at the beginning of a song like 4 times or so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say that's really the only one that is not easily missed.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the other ones, they're speaking so fast that you don't even know what they said.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, if you have a child, like a 7-year-old child or whatever, I don't think they're going to be interested in this anyways.
No.
I would say probably the earliest age that I think would even be interested in watching this, unless they're just super into rap music or something, would be like maybe junior high school.
Yeah.
And really, like, I could see especially this Disney Plus version of it where they did bleep out a few words, I could see this being shown to high schoolers, like at school, like in your history class. Just because I think it does present the story of Alexander Hamilton pretty well. And I think there's a lot to learn by watching it. And also I don't think it's that objectionable.
I feel like, because I mean, there's some history class electives where they do like Hollywood versus history. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this could be a good candidate for Hollywood versus history type class.
Oh yeah.
Kind of compare and see what was accurate and what wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be a good candidate for it done right, because there's a lot of like, I don't know, like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. This is not.
Oh no.
So,
definitely more accurate than that.
I kind of like to talk just ever so briefly. We'll maybe go for another 20 minutes or so, but like, just about like some favorite scenes and like themes, ideas that were expressed in it. Obviously, we talked about Revolution. There's a really cool scene where George Washington is introduced, and very quickly after he's introduced, you realize that he's defined the odds to even go into battle against the British. He talks about being outgunned, outmanned. Like he has his doubts, can we even win this thing? And I thought that was really cool to watch. I really enjoyed watching Hamilton's kind of rise to political fame because George Washington found him to be so intriguing. Yeah. And found him he even at one point says, I'm not sending you out to battle at all because I need you alive. Like I need your mind is more important to me than your hands, your rifle, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was really cool. What were some of the like ideas and themes that you found interesting? We can talk about Hamilton and just his running his mouth all the time. I think that's kind of a big theme.
What did they say? Don't
run your mouth so much. Smile more.
Oh, yeah.
Or something.
Talk less. Yeah.
Talk less. Smile more. I really enjoyed the cabinet meetings because,
so good.
I mean, it's basically straight up a rap battle.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed. There's two of them, and those
between
were really
him and
well
Jefferson.
done.
Yeah. So good. They're well performed, but the lyric writing
and what was funny, them bringing out the actual microphones.
Yeah.
And then at one point Jefferson just like drops it.
It's a literal rap battle where they are holding mics, which I thought that was great. You know, there are little moments like that that are like, okay, that's definitely not what happened in 17.
Yeah,
whatever.
And then the first one, he was like, "You're here in New York City. How about a cabinet meeting?" Yeah. Like he literally like stopped the show to like say that. It was funny.
And they're clearly playing to the crowd. In that moment, and the crowd's just like, yeah. And they were audible like in some of the burns, like in the rap battle when they were like just insult rapping each other. They were like literal like audible like from the audience and stuff. And I being in the room for those scenes would be so cool. It'd be really awesome. So yeah, that was really great. For those who haven't seen it, the cabinet meetings are basically like them debating the Constitution,
different topics that they're passionate about. Like Hamilton's really passionate about the bank, and Jefferson's not. Yeah. Jefferson's really passionate about Virginia having a lot of power. Yeah. Hamilton's not.
The capital, yeah.
And that brings out one of the biggest songs in the musical. They actually reprised it a couple times about something about being in the room, or you weren't in the room, or something like that.
Yeah, the room where it's happening.
The room
or
where
something.
It happens, yeah.
And Burr was offended because he wasn't able to be in there.
Yeah, throughout the whole musical, we kind of said this a little bit already, but like you kind of get the sense that the strong sense that Aaron Burr is literally trying to be on the same level as Hamilton, and he's just at every corner he's just getting rejected, struggling to even keep up. Yeah, like Hamilton is getting all the accolade, and there's a lot of themes in the musical about, you know, talk less, smile more, about just don't run your mouth. But at the same time, that kind of is what makes Hamilton prominent. Like he's getting a lot of his you know, ascension, climbing the ladder, the political ladder, if you will, by running his mouth, and people like what he has to write. Like there's a lot of writing in that. You see him writing letters and Federalist Papers, and like people are legit like just intrigued by listening to this man speak. And Aaron Burr is taking the opposite approach of like, hey, you know, speak when you have something important to say. but then and he believes that, but it's also not getting him ahead either.
Yeah.
And ultimately that kind of comes down to the battle at the very end is that he feels like Hamilton is directly opposing him on certain things. So
because like right when the meeting happens, the meeting that we're referring to happened with Madison, Jefferson, and Hamilton. Hamilton meets with Burr right before the meeting, and then he kind of just leaves Burr to go have this meeting.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that was kind of the beginning of, their friendship was, I think, on rocky standing already at that point. But I feel like that was a clear delineation point where like you don't really even see them speak to each other very much after that, and it doesn't really come to a huge head until the election at the end, which covers the election of 1800. But I just really I enjoyed those themes, kind of how they got kind of hashed and rehashed over and over again. Caitlin, what did you think about the romantic relationship stuff? How that played out? Like, obviously we talked about how Hamilton's not a great guy all the time.
Well, it was kind of funny because like Angelica's the one that like literally like goes and gets Hamilton and like introduces him to Eliza, and then like so you have this whole scene where him and Eliza meet, and they're like, oh, we're so in love. And then like it all like stops, and then Angelica is like talking about how she's in love with him, and I'm just like, what? Then why didn't you just go for him? Why'd you introduce him to your sister? It's just like so confusing. So then she's like talking about her love for him, and I'm just like, okay, this is kind of messed up because he's married to your sister now.
Yeah.
And then they still are constantly like writing letters back and forth.
That was the crazy part of that whole thing, was just like, dude, he's like, not even trying to hide his affection for her. Like, she doesn't even live in the United States. At one point, she moved to
London, and he's still writing her letters, and then she comes back and sees her sister, and then they run off to see their dad, and then that's when Mariah comes in.
So Mariah is like this love interest of his that when he's lonely, like when he doesn't have anyone around.
He didn't have anyone, so she just came, and so his love life was very messed up. Yeah,
and then she ends up coming back. Both of the sisters, I think, come back, and then she, even Eliza goes over to London. Does that pick up on that, right?
Yeah.
She leaves the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then...
And their kids, too, right?
Yeah, it takes
all
everyone.
Of them leave, yeah.
And then by the time she comes back, things are already pretty bad. Like he's... like obviously he's... in weird political stance, and relationships are broken, and then
but it doesn't really come out like that pamphlet doesn't come out for a while, so it's like she kind of thinks, oh, we're still good.
At one point she burns, like literally on stage burns with real fire, burns some of the letters that she'd written to him because how she feels burned.
The song was literally called Burn. And then there's a pretty tragic scene where Philip dies. We actually watch Philip Hamilton, his son, die. That's a huge moment for him. It's probably one of the most emotional moments in the entire thing.
Hamiltons were not good at duels. If you're wondering,
apparently,
doesn't run in the family.
Him and his son both died in a duel.
I found it interesting that Alexander basically tells him not to fire his weapon during this pistol duel. It's count to 10, turn around and shoot, and he tells him just to shoot up in the air because that's the honorable thing to do. And then
he dies.
And then Philip literally says, "But what if he shoots?" and Alexander's just like, "You still do the honorable thing, and if he's honorable, he'll follow suit and do the same thing." I'm like. And then the question I wouldn't ask was like, what if he's not honorable?
Yeah.
So
and then he died.
And I thought the staging and the music following that scene was really powerful. Like dressed in all black, mourning together, but also not even looking at each other. They're literally standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder, but they're not facing each other, and everything that implies. So. I thought all that was really beautiful, even though it was extremely sad.
And then we have the Quiet Uptown song.
This is kind of the point where if you go back in history books, after Philip died, that's when Eliza really forgave Alexander. So, that's all I had to say about that.
The Grant and I both audibly were like, whoa, when the Philip death scene happen, because
it's pretty cool.
There's a girl, we talked about this a second ago, but there's a girl that's using her fingers, kind of like this is an audio podcast. If you put your thumb and your index finger together, kind of like you're saying, like something is small, she basically like almost like grips the bullet, which is not there, and she moves her fingers over to the other side and strikes him in the side or chest or wherever he takes the bullet,
and then it goes slow-mo.
It was so cool, like. And I can't think about the dexterity in your body to like pull off a slow-mo, like on stage. You're nervous. There's all kinds of, things that are going on in your body at that moment, and still have the dexterity to just like go into that slow-mo reel from taking a bullet. And then he like falls into a couple ensemble people. Yeah. And they carry his body off stage. So it actually looks like he literally falls in battle, like in this duel. Mm-hmm. So,
it was cool.
I was really impressed with some of the stuff that they did like that. It looked really real. Just kind of looking over my notes. Man, there's so many cool things in this. I love the 10 dual commandments. There's actually several duels that happens in the show. There's 3, right? So there's Philip, and then there's obviously the big one at the end. But even before that, it was the
general guy.
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
And then his friend.
Yeah, like there was a guy that...
Which is the only one that doesn't result in a death.
Yeah. There was one that basically, like his... someone was insulting Washington, was it? Mm-hmm. And he basically says, I'm going to fight you over it, which is so crazy to me that that's in our history. And not like super like way far off history. Like this happened, the events of this thing happened like a little over 200 years ago.
Yeah.
And people just like, you insulted the general, I'm going to shoot you. And, let's go, do a gun duel. But yeah, they talked about the 10 dual commandments, all the rules. Step 1, you can't do this. Step 2, you got to do this. And just kind of lining all those out in kind of ensemble rap fashion. So I thought that was really cool. Any other favorite lines or favorite songs? Things that kind of are going to stick with you. I'm definitely going to be listening to this again. Like I'll pull it up on Spotify and listen to it at work or something.
I enjoy the one chance or one. What they? One shot.
The line, the repeating line from that. That's one of my favorite songs. But the repeating line is "Not throwing away my shot," and it just like kept repeating that over and over again. It's like really singable.
And I jokingly said to you, well, why didn't they just call up Eminem and just have Eminem be in that part and just do his whole one shot thing? But that was probably one of my favorite songs. And then the 10 Commandments of dueling, I enjoyed that as well.
Yeah.
Those were probably my 2 favorite songs.
I would say most of my favorite songs were in the first half. There's some good songs in the second half, but I thought the first half was really, really great.
Yeah, and I liked how I mentioned this while we were watching it, but they brought back a lot of just little one-liners from previous songs, and then they would bring them back. Like there was one part where Hamilton, earlier, Eliza had sang this whole song about how, we're so lucky to be alive and look what we have and all this stuff. And then he kind of used it against her in another part.
Yeah.
And just different times when they would bring back one lines from earlier in the show and throw them in another song. I thought that was really neat.
What was the line, look around or something like that?
Yeah, look around. And
she's using it to say hey, look around, you have a family now. We're married, we have a young son in our lives. Look around you, you don't need to be engrossed in work all the time and going into war, and it seems like all you care about is politics. Look around you, you have a family. And then he actually later on in the show, it was called "That Would Be Enough" is the song that she sings to him, and that song is reprised several times during the musical. But when he reprises it, he says something look around, the nation is in upheaval right now, it needs to be established.
I think it's when Washington asked him to be on his cabinet or whatever, and he was gonna have to go back to work and stuff, and she was kind of not really excited about it, and he was but look, the nation needs me.
Yeah. I definitely previously had underplayed Hamilton's role in that. I know they're trying to get you to feel for Hamilton by watching this show, but these events really happened. Like he was really pretty prominent, and maybe in the behind the scenes, he wasn't George Washington, he wasn't president, but he influenced presidents in general. It's like he was definitely the reason why we were so successful in a lot of ways. So I thought that was really cool too. I really liked the "Don't Call Me Son" parts. Like he has a good relationship with George Washington, but he also is going to assert himself, and like he has a lot of bravado in those scenes, which I thought was really impressive to watch. But I think the King George scenes were probably.
Oh my gosh!
Okay, let's say this.
They were so funny.
The musical is not a comedy, in any way, shape, or form. However, there were some scenes where the audience is clearly laughing. You can hear the audience laughing on the recording, and I was dying. And the King George stuff. There's one song that's not King George that I laughed a lot at too, which I'll talk about in a second. But King George's from the very first song that he sang was awesome, just really, really funny. But then in the second time he comes out, he sings a song where like one of the key lines is "You'll be back." And I laughed so hard at that. And like it's funny because it's just like a really hilarious thing for someone to say. But I also was laughing because I was like, he probably legit said that in 1784 or 3 or whatever it was. Yeah. Like he probably was like, okay, you guys will be back. Like, give me a call when you decide that. And he actually it's not George. I think it's maybe Washington, not King George, but George Washington that maybe utters the line later. But they said, winning a war is easy, governing is hard.
Yeah.
And I thought, obviously that's the serious version of what King George's funny song is all about.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of, especially the second half of the musical is a lot about like, okay, we got our freedom.
Yeah. What do we do now?
Yeah. Thousands of people died. Yeah. For what? What are we going to do with this moment now that we have it? So that was really cool to watch acted out. But the other funny song that I thought that was really hilarious was, so Thomas Jefferson is like missed the entire war because he's an ambassador. Oh, yeah. He's ambassador to France.
And he's like, "What'd I miss?"
And he has this whole song that I think honestly the audience had to be reeling and just laughing with almost every measure of the song. It was really funny from front to back. But and the way he's dancing is really silly. And Jefferson, the way he's played in this performance at least, is very jovial. Like he's almost like not someone you would even take seriously, but then he's obviously like president, like but they play him off as this like kind of jokey kind of guy, and someone that you would laugh at, but also has like some really like poignant moments too. But the "What Did I Miss" song was really funny. I was laughing quite a bit on that one. Cool. Well, I think we've covered kind of most of the things I wanted to talk about. And anything glaring that I'm missing as far as the release of this movie, or I think it's really definitely on purpose that it's coming out 4th of July weekend.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I learned a lot watching it. I honestly did. Like, I'd forgotten a lot of the stuff that I was watching. I was like, I think I learned that at some point, probably 20 years ago, but I just don't remember it now. But the Federalist Papers, about how Thomas Jefferson was like literally defending. He talked to Aaron Burr actually at one point about like, we wrote the Constitution, but now we have to defend it. Like we have to actually prove to people that this document that we spent days and weeks of our lives on of crafting this thing, it has problems. We need to write amendments to it. Then we need to write 85 Federalist Papers, of which he wrote 45 of them.
51.
51. Yeah. More than half.
Hamilton wrote 51. Yep.
So he's kind of a lawyer for the Constitution, to put it that way.
Basically, yeah.
So I thought that was really cool to watch and stuff I didn't know about going into this, or I'm sure knew at some point and just forgot. So yeah, it's a good watch. I probably need to watch it again just to catch everything, because I know there were Grant was talking about how quickly the lyrics go by. They were definitely just a ton. I mean, maybe 100 or more lines that I just didn't even know what they said. Yeah. I thought the audio in this recording was actually pretty good. Oh, yeah. But there were moments where I feel like either the choreography, the stomping on the ground, or the music ramped up to points where I was having trouble hearing some of the things that they were saying.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I thought the audio was pretty good.
But I mean, I would say for anyone who hasn't seen it or has their doubts if they want to see it, I'd say for me going into it, language was like the big thing because I'm not a big person that likes to hear cussing left and right. But I mean, I'd say if that's what's holding you back, I would just go ahead and watch it because I would say 90% of the explicits that you hear, you don't even hear them.
Yeah. Yeah, either because they turn it down intentionally or it just goes by so fast.
So I would say if that's what's keeping you from watching it, I would still just go ahead and watch it. And
you're not a huge musical fan and you enjoyed it, right?
Yeah. That's actually like a ringing endorsement from Grant.
Yeah.
That he enjoyed watching it. Will you watch this again sometime?
Yeah. I mean,
if it's on,
I don't think I would go back and watch it like tomorrow or something like that. But like along the lines, I would not be opposed to watching it again.
Yeah.
And like if the money was like cheap enough to where on Broadway, if that opportunity ever happened, I would go see it. I mean, I'm not going to shell out like $200 to $300 to see it, but I mean, if something posed that was a good deal, I would take it.
Oh yeah. I wonder how big this show is going to be on Broadway. Like when Broadway finally opens, it might be, March of next year by the time that happens. But by the time Broadway actually opens and everyone has seen this on Disney Plus, there's a case to be made for it's going to hurt sales because why would you pay a ticket? You can just watch it at home.
Yeah, you can just watch it. Or it's going to be even more popular because people are like, oh, I want to see it live now.
And honestly, for me, I think everyone's different how they're going to answer that question for them. For me, I'm definitely in the second camp. I'm more interested in watching it live on Broadway in New York now than I would have been before.
I feel like a lot of people will want to go see it after seeing it.
Yeah, because a lot of people might not have really known like what it was really all about or what, and now that they've kind of like seen it, they're like, oh yeah.
And there's something to be said for like knowing the songs before you go see a show. I don't always recommend that, but with this one, I kind of recommend like knowing some of the lyrics in the songs before you see it, just because there's literally 10,001 lyrics in this There's
literally
musical.
46 songs.
46
on Spotify.
Okay, yeah, that tells you everything you need to know.
And they last for 2 hours and 22 minutes. So
definitely at least listen to like the top 10 like biggest most listened songs or something. But yeah, definitely watch it or listen to the songs before you go see it live, before you spend $200 on a ticket. I think honestly, I was glad I saw this for free the first time.
Yeah.
And because I think I actually would enjoy it a lot better if I watched it in person. So I was just kind of looking over my notes. I'll end the show with this, but I thought there were a lot of sad moments. We covered one of them earlier, but until I looked it up just now, I'd kind of forgotten in the first act, we kind of danced around it a little bit ago, but there's a scene where one of Hamilton's friends dies in basically a pointless battle. The Battle of Yorktown.
The war had already been over.
Yeah, Battle of Yorktown had already happened. Cornwallis or whoever it was had already surrendered the British armies. They were being sent back single file, in surrender. And then yet another battle takes place because, it's not internet. There's no phone, to call somebody. Like,
you can't just post on Facebook. The war's over.
But they didn't see the post. Oh, darn it.
But don't worry. He comes back as Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, he does. The actor doesn't die. But yeah,
it's his son.
Oh yeah, his son. Never mind.
So, but yeah, they show his death and how, it's heart-wrenching, not just from a like, hey, that was a pointless death, a pointless battle to fight, but also because it was his friend, and he's super mad at Lafayette after that and stuff like that. But anyways, so really good, just incredible scenes. This is top notch Broadway, like on Disney Plus that you get to watch for free if you're paying your $5 or $7 a month or whatever. It is essentially free for you to watch it. So it's a why not. And I think, especially on 4th of July weekend, it's an easy sell. So,
oh, yeah.
Yep. Go America.
America.
USA all the way.
USA. That would be something that my co-host Jack would if he was here, he would definitely start a USA chant, I feel like. But we're not going to do that. So, Jack, if you're listening, we miss you. We definitely should have done a USA chant. Cool. Well, do you guys want to talk about what else have you been watching? I do have one thing I want to mention as far as what else I've been watching, but do you guys have anything you want to mention?
Honestly, we've been watching, I think, the same thing that we said last time.
Hannah Montana.
Yeah.
Which I was just on last week. And
yeah,
so
you talked about that.
That hasn't changed much.
Okay, some more Hannah Montana.
You want to talk about what you thought of Artemis Fowl? I shared what I thought of it last week.
It was okay.
Just not great.
Yeah.
Well, the reviews on that movie have been just slamming that thing, like really hard on it. I came away a little bit more positive than most of the reviews out there.
I mean,
but I still didn't think it was a great movie.
I wouldn't say it was like the greatest movie I've ever seen, but I wouldn't say it's like the worst. It was just okay, I think.
Like there were some reviews that I was reading where they were like, literally like, this is a bad movie. And I was like, I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. But
it is definitely... One review that I read said it's a forgettable movie, and I agree with that. Yeah. Like I will probably forget all about that movie in a year.
Yeah, like now that he mentioned it, I forgot. I had forgotten we even watched it. To be honest,
it is definitely forgettable, and yet I think they honestly could make more of them. There's a whole series of books that they haven't touched, so
they probably will.
But yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be a hard sell. I think Josh Gad is the only reason that they would make another movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not like the eye gouging out movies that we saw on like Horrible Movie Podcast either.
Yeah, no, it's not anywhere close to that.
We saw I read an article the other day that says that the Mighty Ducks and what else was coming on? There was another movie. Green. Yeah. So we were kind of excited about that.
On
Disney they were supposed to come in July. Yes. Yeah, okay. July 1st maybe.
July 3rd.
Oh, today?
Today.
Okay.
Cool. Well, I would definitely like to do that with at least Grant, and you're welcome as well, Caitlin. I know you don't always enjoy coming on, but you had a lot to say today, so I appreciate you being on today's show. But we'll probably need to cover one of those sometime. But Jordan has discovered Elena of Avalor, which I imagine I'll probably have to describe. I've already described it to Grant, but I'll have to describe it to you and probably our listeners who probably never heard of Elena. Elena of Avalor is a straight-to-video, which I know that has a context for a lot of people, but we're going to watch the movie tonight. There is a 2016 movie, straight-to-video, that came out, obviously well before Disney Plus was ever a twinkle in anyone's eye. And it's like an hour and 10 non-feature length movie, right? But it's about this Disney princess who is in like a Latin American country. So like Central America probably. Mm-hmm. And I haven't watched but just maybe like 5 or 10 minutes of the show with Jordan, but she is absolutely enthralled. I mean, like from 5 minutes in, she's like, I like this show, Daddy. And we're like, okay, great. And it's TVY, so it's appropriate for her age. And that is all she's wanted to watch this week is just constant Elena of Avalor. She's probably watched almost the entire first season, is my guess. As much as we will let her watch is how much she's watched. I don't know that she's seen any other shows in the last few days. The animation is very good. So let me describe. I talked about the movie. There's a movie that we haven't seen. It branched into a television show that had 2 seasons, and I think they canceled it. So we've only watched the season episodes. But I'm telling you, if you haven't seen anything from Disney, just Disney in general, Disney Junior or whatever, over the last 4 years, the animation is honestly just as good as anything that they're putting out in the movies. Like, it's not quite like Pixar onward level, but it's pretty darn close. It just tells you that like with modern CGI, computers can do a lot, like even with like syndicated television shows. Mm-hmm. So I think the animation is really good. She loves the characters, and she can't stop talking about all the things that have happened and the purple guys and all these things that she's
about as good as Beauty and the Beast, the sequel.
Dude, that was so bad. Dude, so that was the only other thing we tried watching on Disney Plus this week was I forget the actual name of it, but it's essentially the sequel to Beauty and the Beast. It doesn't have a 2 in the title, but that is essentially what it is. Here's what it is. It is essentially 3 20-minute or 22-minute stories that you would see like in a television show, but pieced together in a straight-to-video release that came out in like probably 98 or something like that. on Disney Plus, it's one of the few things that I've seen on Disney Plus that is 4:3. It is not a widescreen presentation. There's literally, like, what do they call those? Like the black bars. I think they used to call it envelope or something. But the black bars on the left and right side.
Is this the one you saw?
No, but that is the other one that's also, I think, on Disney Plus. There are 3 Beauty and the Beast.
This is the one
movies.
I've seen. I've seen this one.
Oh, the Enchanted Christmas
with the evil pipe organ.
Oh my God. Okay, no, I don't want to see that one either.
You don't want to see the evil
Belle's
pipe organ?
Magical World.
I think it was Belle's Magical World. So the thing about this movie is that I believe it takes place, not that any of this matters, by the way, but I think it takes place during the events of Beauty and the Beast, because Beast is still a beast. Like, he hasn't turned into a prince.
He's not a prince?
No. It's Beast and Beauty and all of the still enchanted objects in the castle. So it's definitely during the events, if you care about canon for Beauty and the Beast, it's definitely during the events of the movie. But like all these little side stories, like there's a whole story about Fifi, which is
Fifi.
Yeah, Fifi is like the love interest, to use that phrase, for Lumiere. So I think at the end of the movie, Lumiere embraces this girl after they get turned back into humans, and that's Fifi. But this is about, I forget what she is. She's some, like, a lantern or something like that. But there's a whole, like, 22-minute episode just about, we got about halfway through the second story, so about 30 minutes into this 65-minute property, and my 3-year-old wanted to turn it off. So that explains
Tells
it all.
you how bad it is.
Yep. So Jessica and I were not engaged at all, but my 3-year-old Jordan was like, I was like, at one point I turned it over to her and she was barely even watching the screen. Like, she was like playing with her toys or something. I was like, do you like this? And she's like, no. I was like, okay, well, let's, it's movie night. So let's watch something you do want to watch. And so we had kind of toyed around with Elena of Avalor. We have a certain number of minutes that we let her watch screen time every day, and she's pretty close already to the end of it, so we didn't want to get into Elena of Avalor, the movie, but we turned on the first episode. She loved it, and then that's all she's watched since. So we've been in an Elena of Avalor house this week, and I'm sure that will continue.
We probably could do a whole podcast eventually, or a whole episode of The Wonderful World of Disney sequels.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, because
and we would just have a great time.
Has one, Lion King, Aladdin. I mean, they all have like
Cinderella. And we could just have a great time.
That would be a good time. But then that would mean that I would have to watch all of those.
We could just read the Wikipedia pages about them.
Yeah. I'm definitely not watching them. So if we're going to do an episode like that, we
could watch Return of Jafar. That's a high quality one.
I've seen Return of Jafar. I probably haven't seen it in 20 years, and I remember not enjoying that movie. So, yeah.
It's just humorous, like especially like Lion King and Little Mermaid 2, because it's relatives of Ursula, relatives of Scar that have come back for their revenge.
Oh, jeez.
That's what makes it humorous.
Okay, well, probably not going to cover that anytime soon. I think it's worth stating in this conversation that Disney is not ashamed. Like they will literally release anything that unless it's offensive, like some old like 1930s stuff that they've had. But unless it's offensive, they're going to put it on there. They're just literally going to release everything that they've ever done. So yeah, definitely read some reviews before you get into anything like that.
I'm still waiting on my Lizzie McGuire reboot show. Still haven't found
That's
it
been
yet.
Announced. Is that something they were supposed to do?
Yeah, like when they first put out Disney Plus, it was like a bunch of publicity about it, and then nothing.
Huh. Yeah. I think with COVID, like there's just a whole bunch of stuff that's been delayed, postponed.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that they haven't moved with all the movies that obviously had to be postponed because theaters are shut down. That like WandaVision and like was it
Winter Soldier
and stuff like that are not postponed. Like they're like, yep, they're still coming out in August. So a month from now, we're still going to watch those Marvel stuff. The only thing I could think of is that they had all the shooting done. They had to have before COVID hit. Yeah. And then the last 3 or 4 months has literally just been post-production stuff. Just making it look good. So, cause you can do that. You can pay somebody to do that at their home or they come in alone to the office or something. So I guess that's the only reason those things are still on time. I do worry about The Mandalorian. Like I know that they were doing some shooting. I don't know if they had to pause that, cancel it try to come back in the fall, you know, hospital willing that they'd actually be able to come back and do that. So, but I really want to watch The Mandalorian in November, so I hope that's not delayed. But I also want people to be safe.
Mighty Ducks 2 and 3 have been announced for Disney Plus. You have to wait until October 30th.
Okay.
But on October 30th, you will be able to watch the whole trilogy.
Sweet. Yeah. I need to rectify my lack of watching those movies for sure.
And for those of you that are into Rotten Tomatoes, Hamilton currently has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
So,
yeah,
impressive.
That number will go down slightly. Like I said, the IGN, I don't know if IGN submits anything to Rotten Tomatoes, but they gave it an 80, basically an 8 out of 10.
I feel like it'll stay in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. It'll be high. I mean, if nothing else, just because people freaking love that story.
Yeah.
And like this, like even if you don't like, really, literally, IGN was only negative about the way that it was shot, like the actual cinematography of it. But as far as like the music, the way it was written, performed, the actors, they had nothing negative to say. Like they were like, this is a top notch, one of the best musicals you'll ever see. And I agree. It's definitely one of the best ones I've ever seen. So
yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for being on the episode. It was a lot of fun watching the movie with you guys and talking about it. If you have anything that you want to write into the show about, write us at DisneyPlusReviews@hotmail.com. Let us know something that you've seen on Disney Plus that you want to talk about, or something that you'd like us to review. We'd love to take your comments or play your audio if you attach an audio file to it. We will be back next week. Not sure when we'll be able to record or what we're going to cover. I think you guys are traveling. I'll try to find someone else to record with me. So I'll pick something off of the list that Grant gave me, or just whatever that person wants to watch. So, and I don't know if that episode will be on time. If you're listening to this, I'll probably try to post this on 4th of July. I think that would be timely. On Saturday, so it might be more than a week before the next episode comes in, maybe 8 or 9 days later, but try to get something for you every week, and tune in next week to find out what that mystery episode is going to be about.
Thanks, Phil.
Yep.